Did you know that strength, movement, and vitality are not really about age at all, but about how often we remind the body what it was designed to do? When people talk about feeling younger, they often imagine something abstract, like turning back time. But biologically, the body doesn't understand birthdays. It understands signals. It understands load, effort, balance, and recovery. When those signals disappear, the body adapts by becoming smaller, weaker, and more cautious. When those signals return, even later in life, the body responds with a quiet intelligence that is both humbling and hopeful. I've spent years watching this happen in real people. People in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. People who were told, directly or indirectly, that decline was inevitable. What fascinated me was not just that they became stronger, but how quickly their confidence returned once their bodies remembered how to move with purpose. Strength, in that sense, is not just physical. It's a conversation between muscle, nerve, and belief. The human body evolved to move against resistance. Long before gyms, machines, or structured exercise programs existed, survival itself demanded pushing, pulling, carrying, squatting, and walking. These movements shaped our muscles, our bones, and even our nervous systems. When we remove those demands, the body doesn't rebel. It simply economizes. Muscle tissue shrinks because it is expensive to maintain. Bone density decreases because unused structure is gradually dismantled. Balance fades because the brain no longer receives enough feedback from joints and muscles to justify maintaining precision. This process has a name in science, but at its core it is simply adaptation. What often surprises people is how reversible much of this process can be. Muscle loss after the age of 60 is common, but it is not destiny. Research consistently shows that older adults retain a remarkable ability to build strength and improve coordination when given the right stimulus. The key word there is stimulus. Walking, stretching, and staying generally active are valuable for many reasons, but they do not send a strong enough signal to preserve muscle mass or power. They tell the body to maintain endurance, not strength. Strength requires resistance, control, and progression. When we talk about essential exercises, we're not talking about variety for the sake of novelty. We're talking about movements that communicate something fundamental to the body. They say, you are still needed. You still have a role. Stay prepared. The simplest example is the act of standing up from a chair. It seems almost trivial until you consider how many times a day it determines independence. Getting out of bed, rising from a toilet, standing up after a meal. Each time you do it, your hips, thighs, and glutes coordinate to lift your body against gravity. If that system weakens, the world quietly shrinks. A slow, controlled sit-to-stand movement does something remarkable. Lowering slowly teaches the muscles to absorb force, which is essential for protecting joints. Rising more quickly trains power, which is essential for preventing falls. Together, they recreate the natural rhythm the body uses in daily life. When people perform this movement with intention, something shifts. They don't just strengthen their legs, they reclaim a sense of trust in their own bodies. That trust often spills into other areas of life because movement is deeply tied to identity. The same principle applies to pushing movements. The ability to push something away from you is embedded in countless daily tasks. Opening a heavy door, getting up from the floor, supporting yourself with your arms when balance is challenged. When upper body strength fades, people adapt by avoiding situations that demand it. They stop carrying groceries in one trip. They hesitate to play on the floor with children Over time, avoidance becomes habit, and habit becomes limitation. A simple press up against a counter or wall restores this lost dialogue between the arms, shoulders, and core. The body learns again how to transmit force from the hands through the torso in a stable way. What's important here is not how impressive the movement looks, but how cleanly it's performed. The nervous system is always listening. When movements are controlled, aligned, and pain-free, the brain registers them as safe. Safety encourages effort, and effort encourages adaptation. Pulling movements, though often overlooked, are equally vital. The muscles of the back are some of the largest and most metabolically active in the body. They support posture, stabilize the spine, and assist in lifting and carrying. When these muscles weaken, posture subtly changes. The head drifts forward, the shoulders round, breathing becomes less efficient. Energy levels decline, not because of age, but because the mechanics of the body become less favorable. A simple rowing motion, whether with light weights or resistance bands, counteracts this process. It reminds the body how to draw the shoulders back and engage the muscles that support upright posture. Over time, this changes how a person occupies space. They stand taller, not out of effort, but because the body naturally aligns itself when the right muscles are active. Posture, in this sense, is not a cosmetic concern. It's a reflection of underlying strength and coordination. Once these foundational movements are reintroduced, standing, pushing, pulling, the body becomes more receptive to complexity. Balance improves not because balance was trained directly, because strength provides a stable platform for balance to emerge. This is where movements like lunges become particularly meaningful. Stepping backward into a lunge challenges coordination, hip stability, and spatial awareness all at once. It mirrors real-life scenarios, such as stepping back to avoid an obstacle or lowering yourself toward the ground in a controlled way. The reverse lunge is especially forgiving on the joints while still demanding focus and control. It teaches the body how to manage asymmetry, because life is rarely symmetrical. We step, reach, and turn more often on one side than the other. Training this deliberately reduces the gap between sides, which is one of the hidden contributors to falls and overuse injuries. Another subtle but powerful area of focus is grip strength. At first glance, grip may seem trivial, but it is deeply connected to overall health. The hands are rich in sensory receptors, and their interaction with the environment provides constant feedback to the brain. When grip strength declines, people unconsciously disengage from their surroundings. They carry less. They hold less. They interact less forcefully with the physical world. Carrying weight, even modest amounts, reawakens this connection. It strengthens the hands. Yes, but it also engages the core, challenges posture, and reinforces coordination between the upper and lower body. The act of walking while carrying weight is one of the most natural expressions of functional strength. It's something humans have done for millennia, and the body responds to it with remarkable efficiency. Then there are the muscles we sit on, quite literally. The glutes and hamstrings are among the most powerful muscles in the body. Yet modern lifestyles encourage them to remain dormant for hours at a time. When these muscles weaken, other areas compensate. The lower back works harder. The knees absorb more stress. Over time, discomfort appears where the problem didn't originate. A simple bridge movement performed on the floor restores activation to these muscles in a gentle, controlled way. Lifting the hips teaches the body how to extend through the hips rather than the spine. For many people, this single adjustment reduces chronic discomfort and improves walking mechanics. It's not dramatic, but it's profound because it addresses the root of the issue rather than the symptom. Lower down the body, the feet and calves play a role that is often underestimated. They are the first point of contact with the ground and the last line of defense when balance is challenged. Calf muscles act as pumps, assisting circulation and supporting endurance during walking. When they weaken, fatigue sets in faster and stability becomes less reliable. Rising onto the toes and rocking back onto the heels may look simple, but it trains control through the ankle joint, which is crucial for adapting to uneven surfaces. These movements also reintroduce awareness to an area of the body that many people ignore until something goes wrong. Awareness in itself is a powerful form of prevention. At the center of all movement lies the core, not as a rigid brace, but as a dynamic system that stabilizes the spine while allowing the limbs to move freely. Many people associate core training with strenuous abdominal exercises, but the deeper stabilizing muscles respond better to subtle, sustained engagement. Movements that challenge the body to maintain alignment while the limbs move independently teach the nervous system how to protect the spine instinctively. Holding a stable position while lifting and lowering the legs engages these deep muscles without excessive strain. It trains patience as much as strength because the challenge lies not in movement, but in restraint. This kind of training has a calming effect on the nervous system, reinforcing the idea that stability does not require tension. What ties all of these movements together is not the muscles themselves, but the principle of progression. The body adapts only when the challenge gradually increases. This doesn't mean pushing to exhaustion or discomfort. It means paying attention. When something feels easier than it did before, that's a signal to adjust. Add a small amount of resistance. Increase the time under tension. Improve the quality of the movement. These small changes accumulate in ways that are difficult to appreciate day to day, but undeniable over months and years. There is a tendency, especially later in life, to either do too little or too much. Both extremes are driven by fear. Fear of injury leads to avoidance. Fear of decline leads to overexertion. The body thrives in the space between these extremes, where challenge is present but respectful. Rest, too, is part of the signal. Muscles rebuild during recovery, not during effort. Allowing time for this process is not weakness. It is wisdom. When people follow a simple structure, alternating between pushing, pulling, and leg-focused movements, the body receives balanced input. No single system is overworked and no area is neglected. This balance reduces injury risk and improves adherence because the routine feels sustainable. Sustainability is often the missing ingredient in health advice. What matters most is not what works in theory, but what people can continue doing when motivation fluctuates. Alongside strength, the heart and lungs deserve attention, not as a punishment, but as a celebration of movement. Cardiovascular activity supports circulation, energy, and metabolic health. It doesn't need to be extreme or unpleasant. Walking, dancing, swimming, cycling, these are expressions of movement, not chores. When done regularly, they complement strength training by supporting recovery and overall resilience. What I find most compelling about all of this is not the data, though the data is strong. It's the quiet transformation that occurs when people realize they are not fragile. They may be cautious. They may be inexperienced, but they are not broken. The body, even later in life, is adaptable. It listens, it responds, And when treated with respect and curiosity, it often exceeds expectations. Strength training in this context is not about aesthetics or performance. It's about maintaining a relationship with your body that is grounded in trust. Each controlled movement is a message that says, I am paying attention. Over time, the body replies with improved function, reduced pain, and a renewed sense of capability. The science supports this, but the experience confirms it. When people move with intention, when they challenge themselves just enough, something shifts internally. They walk differently. They breathe differently. They approach daily tasks with less hesitation. Aging does not stop, but decline slows, sometimes dramatically. Perhaps the most important idea to hold on to is this: strength is a form of insurance. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it increases the odds in your favor. It protects against falls, against loss of independence, against the quiet erosion of confidence that comes from feeling physically uncertain. And unlike many forms of insurance, its benefits are felt immediately, not someday in the future. In the end, the body doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for participation. A few intentional movements practiced consistently can restore systems that seemed lost. Not because the body is miraculous, but because it is responsive. And in that responsiveness lies a simple truth that science continues to affirm. We are far more adaptable than we are often led to believe.